So I'll kind of do maybe 1, 3, 5, and then I'm going to go over to the next page, and then you're going to do the odds in a minute. So number 1, I'm going to look first at these numbers out front. So I have an 18 and a 15. I need to know how to reduce fractions. What are 18 and 15 both divisible by? Oops. Yes. So 18 divided by 3 is? Why is this not working at all? Okay. So 6 on top. And what is 15 divided by 3? 5. So 6 is my fraction. How many 8's do I have on top? 7. I can add them together. And how many 8's do I have on the bottom? 3. So I have 8 to the 7 divided by h to the third. How many of them are going to cancel out? 3 will cancel. So I would have h to the fourth left in the numerator, because that's where they're sitting, is in the numerator. 3 of them from the denominator cancel out. Let's skip down to number 3 and 5, and then you can try some of the rest on the odds. But I can only look at my x's. So my x's, I have a 10 on top and a 3 on the bottom. So that would give me x to the 7th left, right? Then I have a 4 on top and a 1 on the bottom. So I would have y cubed left on top. And then I have z to the 5th, z squared. So I would have z cubed left, right? 5 minus 2. They're all in the numerator, so I'm just not going to even write the fraction bar. And then let's just do number 5, because this is a different rule. What do I do when I distribute? What do I do to the exponents when I distribute? Multiply. 14 times 3, is that 42? It's the same as 7 times 6, right? 14 times 3, 48, I think it's 42. 14 times 3 is 42, confirmed. So B to the 42nd. So I think if I gave you like 10 minutes in another minute here, don't do it yet. You can go through and do the odds, and then we can save the evens for next week to practice. Question? Because they didn't write a dot. I mean, they look like they're next to each other because y doesn't have its own exponent, but you technically have a 1 right there, and there's technically a dot of multiplication in between each one. So the squared doesn't go to the y, but that is confusing when there's no 1 to say the exponent of y is 1. The only thing that would be true if this is in parentheses, like yz squared, then it would go to both of them. But that is a good question that people sometimes miss when there's not a 1 sitting there. Yeah, sometimes when you're doing this, if you actually take the time to write dots between everything like that, then you know this is a separate term from this, and that's a separate term from this. The dots, I think, help students, but just when we're writing it out, we don't have to write dots, so they usually get skipped. Okay, so you're going to try the odds in a minute. Can you skip over to 405? Because I also want you to do a few practice here. Let's just together do up through number 9, and then you could do a few on this page as practice too. Remember that if you see a fractional exponent, you write it as a radical. The denominator is the index of your radical. So on number 4, the denominator is 5. So this is the 5th root of the number 32 to the 1st. See how the 5 goes to the index? You're looking for a really small number, because a small number times itself 5 times gives you 32. So I always start with the smallest number there is. If I started with 1, would that give me 32? No, because 1 times itself is 1. So try the next smallest number is 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, 32. Yes, because 4 times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16, times 2 is 32. So the 5th root of 32 is 2. The next number you would try is 3, but that's going to be too big. 3 times 3 is 9, times 3 is 27. So the answer to this problem is just 2, because when I do 2 to the 1st, I still get 2. And the 5th root of 32 is 5. Okay, number 5 and 6 are different from each other. There's a parentheses in 5, but there's not a parentheses in 6. So in number 5, the negative follows the term under the radical. Does this cause a problem for us? Can I take the fifth root of a negative number? I can because it's odd. So if I have a negative times a negative times a negative times a negative times a negative, I'll still have a negative answer. But if this was the fourth root and it was a negative, there'd be no solution because it's an even number of them. You'd get a positive number at the end. So this one comes out to -2. And number 6 also comes out to -2. I just leave the negative outside before I start the problem. So I would do this first and get 2, and then my answer is still -2. So the only time that matters is when you have a square root. Okay, let's do 3 more of those together. And then I'm going to have you work for about 15 minutes to do some practice on 404 and 405 to practice those exponent skills. All right, so I take, this is 2 different negatives, right? This negative puts the -27 under the radical. This 3 goes outside. And then the -1, what does a negative exponent do? What? Huh? Divided by 10. It makes it a fraction at the end, right? Flips it, the reciprocal at the end. So if I got the number 4, my answer would be 1/4. Or if I got the answer 25, my answer would be 1/25. Can I take the cube root of -27? What would it be? So what times what times what would give you -27? So -3. And I'm raising that to the negative first power. So that would be the reciprocal, 1/3 would be my answer. And that would be the hardest question that you'd see, because you've got a negative, you've got a fractional exponent, and you've got another negative. So that's, I think, the hardest problem that you would see on this type. All right, number 8. The 4 goes under the radical. It's a square root. And then I've got this -3 sitting here for the end. So my first step would be to do the square root of 4. What is the square root of 4? 2, and then I'm raising that to the -3rd power. So 2 cubed is 2 times 2 times 2, 8. So my answer would be 1/8. And it's positive, right? This number was positive, so this number has to be positive. This doesn't change it to a negative number, it just takes the reciprocal. This is a hard exponent rule to learn. So it's going to take some practice. What's 0 to any power? Oh, 0 to any power is 0, because 0 times 0 times 0 is 0. I think you were thinking of a base to the 0 power is always 1. Yeah. But 0 to any power is always 0, because 0 times 0 times 0 is 0. So be careful. When 0 is the base, the answer is 0. When 0 is the exponent, the answer is 1. So that's important to keep different. For now, check on your calculator your answers, because you could use your calculator. Okay, so you've got the odds on 404 and the fractional exponent rules. There's like 9 of them left. And so I'm going to give you about 17 minutes to work on it till 8:15. Then I wanted to do the graphing notes so that you have the graphing notes filled in to do some practice next week. On Monday, you're going to do practice because we've got we're doing an exponent quiz Tuesday. So there's a review sheet and there's a scientific notation review sheet. The graphing is not on your quiz on Tuesday. So it's only the things up to what we've done. The properties, scientific notation, and evaluating. So you'll review Monday. Miss Allen will be here, so she's a math teacher. She can help you. Quiz on exponents Tuesday with some graphing practice. Graphing is a bonus. Yeah. Yeah, that'll be on Tuesday's quiz. Yeah. So the fractional exponent you're practicing between now and then. So it's today we're practicing it, Monday we're practicing it. So take about 17 minutes now. Try the 404 odds only. page we were just on, 404 on, and then go to 405, those last 9 questions. 10 through 18. 10 to 18. And I'll project the answers around 8:15. If you don't finish them all, no big deal. Just get some practice in on them. And if you need help, ask me or ask phone a friend. You got people around. Anybody need a calculator just for doing some math at their desk? You can use a calculator if you need it. You gonna remind everyone to be grateful on Monday? You are? Because I'm gonna ask them if you remember. And I'm gonna make you give the mints back. No, I'm just kidding. You're assuming duty, right, Jake? Okay. You already had one. And why did you snatch it up and then you still ate it? Julian, you're gonna make sure he reminds us. Ask Sabrina and Shelby over there. Did Jake and Killian actually remind you guys? And they should get it. No, because you don't have, but yeah. But I guess you're still practicing.
Yeah.
No, you didn't. You did all the odds?
Are we going all the way up to 25?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and then I wanted to try this. The answer is G to the 0, which is the number 1. There's no G. Okay, yep. You have gone as far as you can and get everything.
And then this one, you know, most time is like 2.
So when you distribute the -2, every single thing gets -2. So I would rewrite every single number here.
I think you use most of the
to the negative second, 8 to the negative second, over 9 to the negative second, e to the negative second. Just the odds. So then we're like 25. Then you're doing the 9 problems on the fraction oscillator.
Wait, what did you do?
Okay, so now, these guys don't get to do it yet. But make those positive exponents. Where? These guys underneath them as positive exponents. Because if you have a negative exponent, your first step is to make it a positive exponent.
Yeah, I want to do it. You're the one.
Yeah. 9 squared.
Yeah.
Squared.
One
Over.
to the
Now, the next step is just what is 9 squared and 1 squared? So you see 1 over 4, and then c squared on top, b squared on top. James, how you doing? Okay. Parker, how you doing?
Yeah.
Know any exponent rules? We're on 4. We're on 4. This was, were you on your, oh, was you on usual? Did you write them down? So why don't you work on that first? So your resource page, I thought you were took a picture of this yesterday. Okay, so you need your resource page filled in. That'll explain the rules for you that you don't know right now. This page. Right, you weren't here. So you need to fill that in so that you can figure out the rules.
5 forward. What is it? Number 15, 1 says S, 4.
So they both get the
They
fourth
both
power.
have 4. So would it be, oh, so 1 is the 4th over 5? Which is right.
right, but what is 1 to the 1 to the 4th is 1.
Okay.
So you just have s to the 4th as your numerator.
What?
And then your denominator is what is 5 to the 4th? What is 5 subtracted 5 to the 5?
Oh, I get it. Okay. That's why it's 1.
So s to the 4th over whatever you get with the raise.
625.
So s to the 4th over 625 at the end. Jake had that letter.
The 4, well, you would know. The 4 repeats the 5 4 times.
And it repeats the 1 4 times, but the 1 is just 1.
1. 5 times.
Were you stuck on another one, or you're ready to do the next one, Jake? Right?
So it's 1 over 625. Okay. I already did 17 over 5. I just gave you the answer. I said 1 over 625. Yeah, because you multiply the exponent.
It's currently in its own numerator, so it's so then what's 1 is 1. So I really is not right for 1. So what's 3? 27. So then s to the 9th is the numerator. 27 is s to the 9th over 27.
Yeah, whenever there's a
So in this one, you distribute up, distribute down. Yeah. Yeah. But that's kind of like what you're doing over here. Yeah. So distribute to everything. And I always raise a fraction. How are you guys doing? Did you do the other?
21.
C squared over 4A.
Because this to me is totally different from last year. So even in last year, like exponents is a totally different skill. But you can catch right up in this unit, I think.
So you do -2. You do 2 to the -2 power. 2 to the 9 to the -2 power.
So
We have A1C squared.
over
A squared.
But we're trying to just go
So because it's on the -2,
Yeah.
right, okay.
and then reduce radical form of
So you did 2 to the power -2. I got it.
yes, yeah.
2 to
All right. Let's see. 7 more minutes. So hopefully you're nearing the back page of 404 so that you'll have time for a couple minutes to at least look at 405 before I put up the answers. So you're done with us? I think you, but Trevor, there's another page. And then there's another page. We did like 4 pages. Do you have a phone? Okay. So those 3 pages have to get filled in. I need to write the answers down to the 404 practice. Yeah.
Can you explain this a little bit more?
Yeah, so every single thing is going to get the -2 distributed. So what I would do first is write a fraction mark here.
Oh.
And then I see what David's saying. 2 to the negative second is leave it. Yeah, everything is negative second. Then a to the negative second on top, or b to the negative second on the bottom. So now, before you start simplifying, everything with negative exponent is going to get moved either up to the numerator or down to the denominator. So write another fraction mark. Basically write 9 positive 2. one left step. What is 9 squared? Right. You write it as 81c squared on top. Yeah. And then over. Yeah, and actually the C is like the same size as the 80.
Okay, so it's like,
The other one next to each other, 81c squared over 4 a squared. That's the final.
yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Did he actually know how to do it?
He did, yeah.
Whoa, exponents is
Yeah, there's like mental math, too, right? I don't think you go to that at all.
yeah.
And then this one, the C.
You can't. 13 is not zero. I mean, 32 technically you could reduce it, but I would just leave it like this because when you reduce it, you have to divide everything else by 2. If you can get that far, I'm probably going to formula. Question? Harmony, you okay? If you did this whole page of odds, go to the next page and try the radical exponent. You're going to your Wednesday flex teacher during flex, like the regular flex for you. Do you know who that was? I feel like I read it and it was maybe. I don't think there was library today. So you can at least see the odds, the ones that you did. If you didn't do them all, this is just another good practice for. Let's see, we did 1, 2, and we did 1, 3, 5. So here's 7 through 13 on the front page. Can you double check that on number 7, you just wrote the number 1? It should not say G to the 0. It should not say G at all. It should just say the number 1. Anything to the 0 power is the number 1. You lose the base, you lose everything. It's just the number 1. Did anyone actually do 6 to the 28th on their calculator? That's a huge number. So I just left mine as 6 to the 28th. This would be h to the 24 over g to the 6. Make sure your g to the 6 is in the denominator to get full credit. And then I didn't know this offhand, but 3 to the 6 is 729, x to the 6, y to the 6. This is another one, like Sabrina was asking. Sometimes it's easier if you write like 3 to the 1st, x to the 1st, y to the 1st before you distribute. That way you remember that every single thing gets that number 6 and you don't leave someone out. So sometimes putting a 1 will help you on a quiz not make a mistake of leaving someone out and get the exponent. And then let's see, here's 15, 17, 19. It was s to the 4th over 625. Because 5 to the 4th is 625. X to the 15 over y to the 12. The b and the a, they just flip-flop because this is a negative first power. It goes down to the denominator. I mean, if you also just wrote first, that's okay too. B to the 1st over a to the 1st. That means the same thing. And then this one was you had to distribute all of the negative 2's first. Then when you flip them, you end up with 81c squared in the numerator, and then this guy moves to the denominator 4a squared. So that one was hard because they had a bunch of things that needed to get distributed. And then be careful on 23. When you distribute the 2, you get b squared c to the 0. This becomes 1, but you're still left with b squared. So the answer is not 1, the answer is b squared. But the answer to 25 is 1 because it's to the 0 power. So anything to the 0 power is 1. So 23 and 25 were different. Make sure you have different answers. They're both not 1. And then on the fractional exponent page, if you had time to look at those bottom 9 problems, if not, they're there for next week. You could try them next week. Let's see. This one becomes 2, and then 2 to the negative 3rd is 1/8. I had to use a calculator for that one, 1024. I don't know 4 to the 5th in my head. 1024. Positive 4, that one I could do in my head. This one, you're taking the cube root of a negative number, so you get negative 5, but you're squaring it, so you should get positive 25. 1 to any power is 1. 15 and 18 were both no solution. You're taking the square root of a negative number under the radical. That's what the parenthesis is telling you to do. And then I got started at 49 is 7, and this one was 27. So gauge it for yourself. If you didn't have time to do all these, they're there for next week. There's some of these on the quiz review. So if this is what you're struggling with, take some time on that maybe next week.